Hello everyone, Adam here again from FourFourTwo. Now it's that time again. We're going to start talking about, well, not FFP, but PSR, which is Profitability and Sustainability regulations, because two teams have allegedly breached those sanctions again. And one of them is Everton again. And yes, before you all start coming from ahead, I know that Manchester City have 115 charges looming over their heads, and that investigation will conclude as and when it does. The same with Chelsea's, because they're much bigger and full-blooded investigations with a lot more charges in them. In the case of Forest and Everton, it's literal breaches over a 3-year period and it's one charge. Therefore, these sanctions are being dished out a lot faster, but they are still quite brutal, and it is very, very harsh on the fans of those clubs respectively. So let's just talk about what has happened again in the case of Everton. So as you may or may not know, profitability and sustainability regulations permit that a club can only lose a maximum of £105 million over a 3-year period. Now, these charges are coming off the back of the 22-23 season, so last season. So in the case of Nottingham Forest, because they were in the Championship the 2 seasons before that, they were only permitted to lose an amount of 61 million. So they've gone over that threshold, whereas Everton's is 105. And just to really quickly go over profitability and sustainability, and what it is in a nutshell, it is as follows. Premier League clubs can make allowable losses of up to 5 million a season, averaged over 3 seasons, and then they can increase that figure to 35 million a year with owner investment. And they also have to spread out any transfer costs over a maximum of 5 years. Now, both cases, Forest and Everton's, have been referred over to an independent commission, which is now going to adjudicate the appropriate sanction. That could be any kind of sporting sanction, it could be a fine, or it could be a points deduction. And of course, another points deduction in the case of Everton, which would be catastrophic. Let's just say that. Everton, though, are already appealing that first points deduction and have come out with a second statement off the back of these charges that reads as follows. Everton have criticised a clear deficiency in the Premier League's rules and have stated that the Premier League does not have guidelines which prevent a club being sanctioned for alleged breaches in financial periods which have already been subject to punishment, unlike other governing bodies, including the EFL. As a result, and because of the Premier League's new commitment to deal with such matters in season, the club is in a position where it has no option but to submit a PSR calculation which remains subject to change pending the outcome of the appeal. So yeah, I think quite a lot of Premier League clubs, Manchester United included as well actually, because they're having some trouble with this, but most Premier League clubs have actually got a bone to pick with PSR in the Premier League, because the Premier League has recently changed its regulations on when it investigates for these PSR breaches to the point where it's now in season. So Everton are basically saying that the PSR calculations that they've had to file are time barred and maybe unfinished or invalid and are subject to change effectively. So that is why Everton are appealing their case, because they believe that the PSR that they have submitted effectively isn't finalised yet. Meanwhile, in the red corner, Nottingham Forest have also released a statement which is a lot less full-blooded. It simply just says that they continue to cooperate fully with the Premier League on this matter and are confident of a speedy and fair recovery. So what happens next, you ask? Well, in short, no decision or sanction is likely to come during the season. It's probably going to be at the end of the season, but here's a brief timeline. So on January the 15th, which was actually yesterday as of recording, I'm recording on the 16th today, but on January the 15th, that's when the charges were confirmed, and the clubs Everton and Forest have 2 weeks starting from the 15th to respond to these allegations and charges. By April the 5th, the hearings must be completed, and then on April the 12th, the decision must be provided, and the clubs then, once that decision is made, will have a week to respond to that. And then on May the 19th, the Premier League season ends, and then 5 days later, on May the 24th, any appeals from Forest and Everton must be concluded, and of course, if they go wrongly, then the sanctions will be dished out just at the end of the season, which could be quite damaging for Forest and Everton. Now finally, I'll give you a brief overview of what Everton and Forest's supposed appeals are likely to consist of. So we'll start with the Toffees. In short, Everton aren't happy regarding the parameters and the time frame regarding their PSR calculation. Everton's main issue is that they believe certain mitigating factors haven't been taken into consideration with the PSR calculation, one being that certain payments on the new stadium haven't been written off, and another one being the war on Ukraine, which has cost them apparently £200 million investment on naming rights for their new stadium at Bramley-Moore Dock. They're also unhappy that this charge has been brought about before the appeal for the first sanction has even been concluded. So they're claiming that it's also double jeopardy and that they're being sanctioned twice for the same breach effectively because it's within the same time frame. Now in terms of Forest's position, well, let's just say this lightly. Their owner has been spending a lot of wad since they came up from the Championship. However, in similar circumstance to Everton, their mitigating factors and their issue is to do with the accounting period. And they are stating that had they have sold Brennan Johnson in June rather than on deadline day, it would have met a different threshold to submit to PSR, which would have seen them within the limit of the 61 million losses had they have sold Brennan Johnson earlier. So he went for 50 million. So that could be a mitigating circumstance for which Forest will appeal their case. And Forest's position is that they, as owners, were trying to do the best for the club with the Johnson transfer. Apparently in June, a £35 million bid went in from Brentford, which they rejected, and later sold him on deadline day to Tottenham for 50 million, therefore made £15 million more, which is better for the sustainability of the club, truth be told. I mean, that's irrefutable. And this situation at Forest is also bleeding into the market as we speak now, as they're going to have to sell players before they can buy new ones if Nuno wants to bring new players into the squad because of the amount of players that they've brought in the previous 3 windows. So, you know, perhaps as well, if this continues into the summer, then you might see a few Forest stars, the likes of Gibbs White, Elanga maybe, because he's been playing well as well, being sold at cut prices because Forest do need to balance the books. Like I said earlier in the video, spreading transfer costs over a 5-year period, Forest need to address that and are going to have to reduce the size of the squad before they can add to it. And the situation right now at Everton isn't much better than the one at Forest. In fact, it's probably more perilous as the majority owner, the majority shareholder, Farhad Moshiri, has completely withdrawn from funding the club as he looks to sell them to 777 partners. And the Premier League have yet to give the green light. Of course, it's the fit and proper ownership test to 77 partners, the controversial American firm. So that's probably going to lag on into the summer as well. So in short, not a good situation financially for Forest and Everton to be in, but you would assume, given the statements that both clubs have released, that they are both going to appeal these charges. So this will probably lag on for quite a few months. Anyway, to avoid myself going crazy, I'm not going to link this to the Chelsea and Man City cases in any way because, again, 115 charges to 1. Big difference. The City one will be very interesting with what happens in the next few years, but for Forest and Everton, it's going to be a very, very interesting, important and pivotal few months. So that was a brief overview. I hope you enjoyed it. Do not forget to subscribe. I've been Adam Monk. Take care. I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.